This is Rob Morse of the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. I'm reminding you that this podcast is one of the many good ones on the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, the high-functioning marksman, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear, where we counter the media's negative image of gun culture by introducing you to the amazing men and women who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. We're focusing on people, not politics. The everyday people from all walks of life, men and women who volunteer their time and effort, who spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. They're your doctors. They clean your teeth. They're fixing your houses, taking care of your pets. They fix your computers and pilot your planes, and they protect our streets and our nation. They are gun culture at its finest, and it's misunderstood or completely unknown to the mainstream media. Today, I'm going to introduce you to another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. I found my friends Dave and Reagan Williams at Salina Gun Shop when I needed an FFL transfer for a firearm. Several years ago, they were just a tabletop FFL. Well, since that time, they have grown into a one-stop shop for guns, ammo, accessories, gunsmithing, custom engraving, and they are a certified Cerakote applicator. Whether it's a custom build, engraving, or Cerakote, no matter how mild or how wild you want your firearm, no matter what you need, they can handle it. Now, I've taken them older guns that have bad and scratched up finishes. Salina Gun Shop made them look like new. When my wife wanted her own Glock 19, I had Salina Gun Shop Cerakote the frame to just the right color that she wanted. I've had them install new sights on my guns, do repairs and trigger work on my revolvers. I trust them with my guns, and you can too. I cannot recommend them highly enough. Check them out today at salinagunshop.com. That's CELINA gunshop.com. Look for a link in the show notes to get to their website. Or if you're here in North Texas, stop by and visit them in person at 701 North Preston Road, Suite 310 in Salina, Texas. salinagunshop.com. Small town store, big town service. salinagunshop.com. Our special guest today is Kendall Perkins from West Haven, Connecticut, our first resident of the state of Connecticut. Kendall, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Lloyd.
Tell us a little about yourself. Tell us what you do for a living there in New Haven.
Well, what I do, I work for, I'm an electrical engineer for Fujifilm Medical Systems is my day job.
Oh.
So I work on medical equipment, x-ray systems, and I do a lot of helping customers over the phone sometimes to remedy issues and helping our field technicians out in the field to if they run into something that they just can't handle on their own. So we're kind of like the specialty guys that's been out there and done that, seen that. So so I got my electrical background from being in the Navy for going on now, along with the reserve time, 18 and a half years. So I did 11 years active duty, and I was an aviation electrician. So electricity works on planes just like it works anywhere else. So.
Right.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your service. I really do appreciate it. I know our listeners do too.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Are you a Connecticut native?
No, I'm not. I'm a transplant. I'm originally born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and from there the military bounced me around all over the world pretty much. And then once I went off active duty, I found a job and they said, we'll pay you a lot of money. So I said, okay, I'll move to Connecticut. And then when I moved here, I realized why they pay so much to live. I'm like, oh, they got me.
How long have you been in Connecticut?
It's a little over 6 years now.
Okay. So where did the interest in guns come from? You born and raised in Chicago, obviously not exactly a big pro-gun place. You're now living in the home state of one of the Senate's most ardent anti-gun politicians. What is gun culture like in Connecticut, and how did you get interested in guns? Was it the military, or was it something earlier than that?
It was earlier than that. My dad was a retired Cook County sheriff in Illinois, so I've always been around guns growing up. So pretty much my dad and my mom were both in the Army. And so guns were, and protecting people was always part of my life. So it just was a no-brainer when I decided to join the military, which integrated more gun culture in my life and gun training and doing security forces all over the place and stuff like that. So I've always been into shooting as long as I can remember, and always was around firearms. So that's why people ask, like, you're from Chicago, you're here, like, so. But yeah, in Connecticut. So I just ended up in Connecticut. Thankfully, I'm still in the military reserve, so all these crazy gun laws really don't affect me that much. But you would be surprised how much gun culture is actually still here, because this is the Constitution state. So it wasn't always this bad. So yeah, there's a lot of there's always a gun competition up here somewhere every weekend, sometimes two every weekend. So it's a very close knit group of people. So every time I go to a match, you see the same people, make good friends. So it's actually a pretty big gun community up in this area.
Okay.
Even in all these really crazy gun law states. You'd be surprised how many people, like, we travel to all this, because they're all really small states. So I was in Massachusetts last weekend. Mm-hmm. I was in New York a couple of months ago. You just have to know the laws.
Right. Exactly. So how did you get introduced to competitive shooting? And was your previous experience with guns, was it long guns or handguns? How did you get introduced to handguns?
Well, handguns was my first thing I've ever shot.
Oh, okay.
I was, like I said, he was a police officer, so I was like, he loved revolvers, because he hated when they moved into shooting and have to shoot Glocks and stuff like that. He said, I can't hurt nobody with this thing. So I've always been around handguns, and then being in the military, that was our sidearm, the Beretta.
Right.
And of course we have the M4, so I've done both of those. So most of my shooting experience, really, my real active shooting experience, comes from the military.
Okay.
Doing base security in Florida, being deployed overseas, stuff like that. So that's why, I think we talked before we started recording that I'm way better at shooting on the move, because I'm used to shooting on the move. Don't
right.
stand still.
So
much to shoot, so.
What was the introduction to competitive shooting? How did you find out about it? What got you interested in it?
Well, I've always been interested, because I used to watch a lot of stuff on TV, like watching the pro shooters, Jerry Michalak and Max Michel and all those guys, and it was just because I was like shooting, so I like to shoot, and it was, the military had the marksman teams and stuff like that.
Right.
I tried to get into and do that stuff. So it was just a progression, and then, but when I was in active duty, it was with work and everything, I really wasn't able to do it all that much competition stuff. So I was always training to be able to do my job. And then once I got out of the Navy is when I really got into it. When I got to Connecticut is when I really got into competitive shooting. I had a steady job, steady hours, and had weekends free. So I just finally said, okay, let me get into this IDPA and shoot. So I went to the website, signed up, found the closest local match, and went at it, and then haven't turned back.
And you've only joined IDPA in February of last year. So in just a little over a year and a half, you've really taken to this sport. You've gone from, let's see, you're in SSP now as a sharpshooter. You went from zero to sharpshooter in just a little over a year. What's that experience been like? And do you remember what it was like that first time that you went to the match, to a local match as the new guy?
Well, like the first time I went to a local match, it was an indoor match actually in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Okay.
And because it gets cold, so this one it gets cold here, so they had the indoor match. It was like in November. So because I'm just a people person anyway, so I just walked in there and they said, like, everybody was inviting. I've never had a bad time at any match I've ever been to, so everybody was invited. They said, "Oh, how you doing?" They said, "This is your first match?" I said, "Yeah, this is my first match." They said, and they pretty much went over the rules and everything like that. But before, since I'm a military guy, I always like to be prepared before I do anything. I studied up on the rules. I went up, watched videos. I watched the whole YouTube channel that just talked about intro to IDPA. So I was like, I pretty much knew everything going into it. I was pretty well, had my gear set up and everything like that. And the guys were like, okay, we'll make you the last guy shooting. Let's do it. So like, I was up and I went at it, and I just went. I looked at it as like me doing my clearing room training in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Cutting, splicing the pie, all the IDPA stuff just pretty much translates beautifully from military law enforcement for the most part, because it's pretty much the same rule set.
Right.
Yes, you have to try to go faster. So when I first did my first stage, and I did pretty well. I was slower than everybody else because I was still trying to make sure I was reloading behind cover and all this stuff. And this one guy's like, in here you don't have to do that. You don't have to do this. I'm like, yeah, but it was actually pretty good, because one of the guys was a really tactical guy, so he actually liked the way I did everything. He said, yeah, most guys be gaming it and stuff. You're actually doing everything like you're actually trying to train like if this is real scenario, because he was really into like in a training situation for IDPA. So it was my first time out was great, and I went there, kept going there with those guys doing the outdoors, doing the indoors, and then once everybody else started doing outdoor ones, I jumped on practice score and just found the next match, and it was great from there. Like,
how long after that before you tried your hand at a sanctioned match, and where was it?
Actually, it was pretty soon. Like, it was in June, because my first match was like in November. I did those indoor matches. Then I found an outdoor match. They do it every 2 weeks at Sprigg Rod and Gun in Connecticut here, and they do a bi-weekly match every weekend. So I got with those guys, and then I did some local ones in Rhode Island, and they really got me up to speed because they had like both of those two matches, the Sprigg and the one in Rhode Island at, I think it's Bradford Sportsman.
Mm-hmm.
They had 8 stages, so it's like it was bigger, and it was more than the indoor match, so it was more outside and everything. So it got me ready, and my first major match was the Massachusetts State Championship.
Okay.
And so when I went in there, I was classified as a novice because I can't shoot the 5x5 to save my life. I can't shoot standing still. I can put 2 shots right on target while moving, but if I stand still, I miss a headshot at 10 yards. I go into Massachusetts, and I've already had a couple of I had a good chunk of matches under my belt. I was recording them all. I got a YouTube channel that I post them all on. And so I got up with a group of people that's like, oh, how you doing? Everybody's like, gun people are the nicest people in the world. I don't care what no one says.
There's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. So I think the first stage I had was a stage inside a car, and they called it the DQ stage because everybody who DQ'd that day DQ'd in this car.
Oh, gosh.
Like, everybody, even a guy that I knew from local matches, he DQ'd without shooting one shot at this stage because this was the first stage. He DQ'd on it and didn't shoot one shot. It had to go home. I felt bad for him.
What was the issue with that stage that everybody was it drawing and sweeping your leg as you?
It was actually placing the gun in the car, because you had to place the gun on a box in the car, and you had to make sure it wasn't breaking the 180 when you place it in there. A lot of people was just dropping the gun there, it was automatically breaking the 180. And a lot of people were like doing crazy stuff with the reloads. It was just a bad, but I survived the car. So I'm already ahead of the game. So, and then as we went through, I was doing very well. And people in my group like, what are you again? I'm saying, oh, I'm a novice. They said, no, you're not.
Sandbagger.
They said, I'm saying, like, no, I said, no, I had to explain to them that I'm really bad at shooting a 5x5, but I come from a combat background, so you give me a gun, I'm going to do everything the right way, and I'm going to move and shoot accurately. So I finished the match. I won as a novice. My first major match, won. Got some hardware already, and it felt real good. And that's how I got, and then from that, I got the match bump because I won novice, so then I was a marksman just from that. And then my next major was the same year, was at the Sig Sauer New England regional match. And in that match, so I go in there as a sharpshooter, I guess a marksman, SSP marksman.
Right.
And that match went really well. I think the only really match, it was my first time I got a flagrant penalty.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was like, because it was a stage, they kept saying, hit the steel, then shoot. Hit the steel, then shoot. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'm like looking at everybody else do it because I was the last shooter for that stage. I'm like, okay, no problem, I'll do it. So they say, okay, shooter ready, stand by, beep. What I do? I just start shooting. I never hit the steel. So of course, they like, well, told you. I'm like, okay, give it to me. So actually, because of that flagrant penalty, is always I came in second as a marksman. So if I didn't get that, I would have won that one, my second major match. But I came in second, which was still really good. So that bumped me to sharpshooter. So that's how I went from 0 to sharpshooter in less than a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, you're still shooting SSP this year?
Actually, this year because I did my third major at the Live Free or Die in New Hampshire.
Oh.
Which is a really fun match. I was trying to go this year, but I can't because I got to go to a wedding.
Okay.
But it's a really fun match up there. And I came in 16th out of, I think it was like 40 in my division and class. So I still take that as pretty good, but I was like pretty high overall. So
there's a lot of competitors in that match every year.
Every year. And those really good shooters up there. So I take that as a win right there. So I thought this year, I said, my first gun was a 1911.
Right.
So I said, let me try something different this year and see if I could do the same progression in a different class. Because I still practice SSP, but I pretty much was hitting the wall like I said, I can't do the 5 I can't do that 5x5. So I said, let me just try something new this year. So I'm doing CDP this year.
Okay.
And I've been I did pretty good. Actually, I did classify it as a marksman CDP just by shooting the 5x5.
You didn't miss a headshot?
I didn't miss a headshot. I finally figured out that headshot problem. So most of my matches this year have been local matches. My first major in CDP will be this month at the SIG Regionals again, New England Regionals. It's probably going to be the only major I'm able to shoot this year.
Oh, wow.
So I'm hoping to do very well there. I'm going to really get ready for that. Just this year's a lot of everybody want to get married this year. So.
On match weekends?
On match weekends. I'm like, come on, can you do it on the local weekends? I can miss those. It's not the major.
So how are you finding the transition from SSP to CDP? How is that transition going for you, and what would you say is been the biggest challenge in that transition?
Well, the transition's been going pretty well. Cause like I said, it was I started off with 1911s. I didn't really even own a 9mm polymer gun until I started IDPA last year. Mm-hmm. I bought the SIG VTAC just to try to, because I needed something to do SSP. Because I said, they say everybody says start with SSP. It's easy. I'm like, okay, I'll do that.
Right.
So the only big problem is the difference is the ammo capacity issue. Mm-hmm. So a lot of match stages are really not designed for CDP. Like they'll have 3-shot groups, and then like I had one where it was like 4 targets, 3 shots, and I'm like I have to reload in between.
Yep, you're always going to that third mag.
Going to that third mag almost every stage. But luckily, there's a lot of some CDP guys that go to the local matches I go to, and like they introduced me to the magic of the tack reload. So definitely have to start doing that more often to get everything done. What's
maybe the most important thing at this point that you've learned since you started shooting IDPA?
I guess the most important thing is I've learned so far is pretty much once you have a plan, stick to it. A lot of times I will have, like, a lot of times you'll have your plan and then you see someone else shoot it and you're like, oh, I can do it that way. And then you realize, then you try to do it that way and you're like, nah, I should do it the way I was going to do it already.
Yep.
You wait till the last second. Like, you have your plan the whole time. You're like the 8th shooter and you're like, I got this. All of a sudden you see, oh my God, that was amazing how he did that. I could do that. No. So I learned that's the most whatever you shoot to your level is what I've learned.
Right.
So do what you think you're going to do. Pretty much, I make a plan, and that's it. I don't look at. I just like, okay, I just keep going over in my head, so I don't forget anything when I do it. Most times you look at someone else, or you try to change it right before you do it, or the dreaded beep, brain wipe happens, and
yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter how much better their plan is. If you try to change your plan at the last minute, it will fall apart.
Exactly, because that's their plan. Don't do stick to what you know and do it that way. Yes.
All right, so let's play a little pick your poison. I've got throw some questions at you. They're all either or questions. You tell me which you would prefer, which answer you would prefer, and why. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. So you, this one should be interesting. I like to ask this one because I get different answers on this one. I like to hear how people rationalize it. You talked about how you hate the 5x5 classifier. I completely understand that. Most of the major matches, probably all the major matches you've been to, had a standard stage.
Yes.
If you had your choice, would you rather shoot that standard stage? And I'm not talking about that little, maybe a 6-round warm-up kind of thing. I mean a full standards, multiple strings and all that. Would you prefer to shoot that on the very first stage of the day or your last stage?
I would like to shoot it on my last stage of the day because I realized that I beat the warm-up. My first stage is either really good or really bad. Because either I'm just on that day or it's the stage I just can't get anything right. I'm shooting left, right, high, and so once I get that out, I get that out the way, and I'm good to go for the rest of the day. So usually my last stages are usually my best stages. So if I had a choice, it would definitely be the last stage because it'd probably be the best stage.
Gotcha.
My best standard ever.
Gotcha. What is before I ask the next one, what is the weather like? You talked about it being cold. What kind of range of outdoor temperatures do you end up with shooting in Connecticut?
Oh, it will go from almost feels like negative degrees to like this past weekend was felt like it was over 100.
Oh, wow.
I was ready to go home. I didn't want to do anything. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going home now.
Okay. Well, that may be a little bit of a tell for the next question. Which would you prefer if you had a match in the freezing cold at 30 degrees or below, or a match above 90? Which would you prefer?
I've done both, and that's a question I have to think because I'm good in the heat. I can deal with the heat, and I can perform in the heat without any issues. But in the cold, I always say I'd rather be cold than hot because you always warm up, except for when you're shooting. So your hands are
right.
I don't care if you got gloves. Your hands are, and especially this year, I was shooting a 1911 all metal gun. So right. I actually would rather be in about 100-degree temperature because I can just drink some water and I can just deal with that. But try to shoot with your hands frozen, shaking. Yeah, I'd rather do it. I'd rather be hot when it comes to shooting. Any other time, the cold's better, but not when you're trying to shoot.
Here's one about your preference in terms of the makeup of a stage. Would you prefer a stage that had wide open targets with no non-threats, no barriers, no hard cover, but everything's distance, right? 20 yards and beyond? Or would you rather have everything up close inside of, say, 10 yards, but lots of non-threat and lots of hard cover?
I'd rather have it up close and personal. Like I said, I like to run and gun and get up to the targets. And it's just easier to, and like I said, it goes back to all the training I've been through at Root Clear, and we train to be able to shoot close targets in tight quarters without hitting the good guys. Mm-hmm. So actually, I'd rather do that. The long shots with because like 20-yard shots, that's just unrealistic with a pistol. If I'm shooting that far out, I'd rather have a rifle.
Gotcha. Okay. You're still you're growing as a competitive shooter. You're not up to the expert, the master level yet. So I'm always interested to hear how different levels of shooters think about this particular situation. You've probably seen it. I like to call it the hold my beer stage. You come to a point of cover. You've got a steel popper that you shoot that activates some sort of a disappearing target, whether it's a drop turner with a single presentation or two quick presentations or an in and out or something like this. But at the same time, there are targets. As you're slicing the pie, there are targets, paper targets that you could engage and then go back to the disappearing target. I've seen some people take that risk, shoot the steel, shoot the paper, go back to the disappearing target. And I've seen others who will shoot the steel and sit there and wait no matter how long it takes. Where do you fall in that particular situation? Are you more likely to take that risk, or are you more likely to wait on it and make sure you get the shots on the disappearing target?
Well, when I first started, I would definitely wait. But over the short time I've been shooting, I've been lucky enough to have local matches that would do that a lot to try to get you into it. And there's a local match, even when I go to do my AT drills in Virginia, where I go to, and they kind of always try to push the envelope where they made a stage you had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You had to. They said if you can't wait for it because it's not there yet, so you have to go shoot the other target first. So yeah, they made it that way. Like if you didn't do that, it was a PE.
Okay.
Did it. So, but now because I've done a lot of majors and they always put that in there, I realized I always pay attention to how long it will take. So if I can look at it and say, okay, it's going to take this long for that to happen, I will take the risk, hit the paper, and go back to the disappearing target, because usually you have enough time if you're shooting fast enough.
Right.
Yeah, so now when I first started, like the first couple of times I've seen it, I would just sit there, wait, looking like a statue. Okay, come on.
Yep.
And just wasting time, and people's like, why do you do it? I'm like, I don't know how long. But now, like, even at I'm not an expert or anything, but I take this chance, and like I said, I always want to push myself anyway.
Right.
So it's better to take the chance and miss it than to always be that statue the whole time.
Gotcha. Now you talked about how here's an interesting question for you. You talked about how you like shooting on the move. You don't like shooting standing still, and you talked about, having a hard time with the headshots and the classifiers. Say you're coming up to you're finished shooting at one point of cover, you move to another, and as you're approaching the fault line at that next point of cover, you've got the first target in the next array is available to you to shoot before you get to the fault line.
Uh-huh.
But it's a partial, and all you've got is that headshot before you get to the fault line. When you get to the fault line, you've got a better shot. Do you take that shot as you're moving, or do you wait and take something a little cleaner and more careful?
Well, I would probably wait till I get to because I'm moving pretty quick. I'm moving pretty fast whenever I go from cover to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So just because how fast I am, I know, like, taking the risk of trying to take the headshot while I'm moving actually will probably slow me down.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I miss, I got to take a makeup shot. So I usually will get because I've had that situation, and I've done it both ways. And because I was doing a practice with some guys, and we were just running these stages, and I was faster when I just booked it to the position and shot and was done, versus trying to shoot on the move, because it's just this habit to slow down when you're trying to shoot while you're moving.
Right.
A steady shot. But when I just push it all and just stop at the fault line and put shots on the target, it's a better shot, and it's a lot quicker. So.
Right. Okay. As we wrap things up here, what is it that's gotten you hooked with IDPA that keeps you doing it? You just started last year. You've progressed really well in the very short time that you've been shooting, and you keep on doing it. You keep on working to get better. You're shooting at your local matches every weekend. Why devote so much time to it? What is it about this sport that you love?
Well, it's just the people is really what keeps me going, because every time I go there, everybody's friendly and trying to help everyone else out, and then it's just fun shooting guns. Like, it's better than going to play golf every weekend or just sitting around the house playing video games. It is the progression of trying to get better at something. That's what drives most people to do anything.
Yep.
If you do anything, it's because you want to get better at it. No one does anything like, I'm just going to stay just doing it this way. Well, I want to get worse at this. So it's always it is in any sport, because I've always been an athlete my whole life, and it's just as you get older, you have to find other things to compete at.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not going to be slam dunking basketballs anymore, or running a 100-meter dash in 10 seconds. But I can get a more accurate and fastest score on the IDPA stage. So.
Yep. Well, Kendall, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for everything that you're doing, and I hope at some point, obviously won't be this year with all your wedding plans, but hopefully maybe next year we'll get to meet face-to-face on the range.
I love that and look forward to it.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.